This is Gary Attention with CNTV, and today we're in Colorado. I'm here with Organileaf Farms. Since 2022, they've been providing premium organic CBD products that empower individuals to take control of their health and well-being. I'm joined here with the CEO. Peter, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to start off a little bit about yourself. I mean, you're formally educated in my home state of Colorado at CSU, Regis, and the University of Denver, both in business as well as law. Share with us how a legal professional such as yourself found his passion in the CBD industry.
Well, I'll give you the short answer, but my family has always had farmland out in Kansas, actually. And during my time as an attorney, I had a practice and I had extractors pop up, and then I had a lot of other marijuana industry people contact me as it was in its infancy, and I had a lot of clients in that area. And then in 2019, the Farm Bill passed, and that was kind of the same time COVID hit. And I had gone on a personal health journey for the past, I don't know, probably decade leading up to that. It was about 10 years, and I was very into health, fitness. I had lost a significant amount of weight, and CBD was something that was becoming of more interest to me. And I was working with extraction facilities, and I essentially said, hey, why am I not in this? This is kind of where my passion is. This is kind of what I like doing. And so we decided to go buy some seed and grow.
I mean, this really was a personal journey for you, quite honestly, that became professional. Speaking of the infancy back in the day, Colorado played a pioneering role in cannabis and awareness of CBD in the years prior to legalization. Is education still a vital part in understanding full plant hemp uses today, would you say?
Yeah, most of our customers, we put on webinars because there's so much and we can't get into all of it today because we don't have enough time. But education is actually the biggest piece. That's how we inform people and get people to understand. Leading up to this, I was, I follow a lot of podcasters, nutritional people. I read a lot of books. Our two board members are both medical doctors, one of which is my dad, who was an internal medicine and pulmonary doctor for 60 years, actually. Or actually 50 years. His license is getting renewed actually as of 2 days ago. So we started getting really into the supplement industry as a whole. And essentially, I had one point, probably around 2015, 2016, where I had a pantry full of supplements. I mean, I had bought everything you could think of, from, people, probiotics to all the tinctures that are out there and all this other stuff. And I finally decided to start taking a deep dive into it because I spent about $700 one month on supplements. And I was like, these are all good for me. These are all going to do great things. So I have two doctors who are very good at research, and I'm an attorney, so I like reading, and I just started gobbling up information. And essentially, when we launched the company, one of the reasons we launched it was efficacy of CBD. So a lot of these other supplements out there, and I can just go ahead and tell you right now, from an education standpoint, the supplement industry, somewhere between 60 to 75% of the supplements that are on the shelves aren't even what they claim to be. So there's not a rigorous testing process. A lot of them aren't third-party tested. People don't go do their homework. And that's if you go walk into your natural grocery store. If you were to take that stuff and take it to a lab and test it, whether it's like vitamin C or ashwagandha or some other supplement you're taking, it between 60 and 75% of the time isn't even what it claims to be. So we got deep into the supplement industry. But when it comes to CBD, we started looking at study after study after study. And essentially, we were like, how could the efficacy of this be so high? Whether it's pain or inflammation, anxiety, sleep is the big one that's coming up. It's improving REM sleep. It literally sits head and shoulders above, but it kind of came out and then became a fad, like very quickly. We were like, this is really weird. Why does a product that can do so much get put on the back shelf so quickly. And a couple of reasons for that are most of the CBD on the market, 9 of the 10 biggest CBD companies sell bad CBD. It's not good. For instance, I'll give you an example like when you do the extraction process, there's something called CBDA, which is just the acid. And you have to be very careful when you're extracting not to lose this acid because there's not a ton of it in the plant. That is more effective for nausea than most prescription or pharmaceutical drugs for nausea. So my mom actually had breast cancer and she used CBD instead of those drugs for her not for when she became nauseous. And most CBD products out there, if you were to go buy one on the shelf, first of all, it's going to be in probably the wrong milligram amount, or you're going to get it in the wrong form, whether you take it in a gummy or, however you're doing it. And secondly, it's probably not going to have in it what you need in order for it to work with your body. So that's just kind of a small example of it, but there's a lot in the plant that ends up not extracted. And a lot of the companies out there are just marketing companies. So the CBD industry is no different than a lot of the supplement industry, whereas it's just bad CBD. And an example of this, when I do presentations, I have a picture of 3 different stores that are local to me that are all these natural stores. And I went in and went up to their shelves, saw their products, and I took pictures of them. And then I went and I looked up their certificates of analysis, and they're marketing these as full spectrum CBDs. And 9 of them had little to no minor cannabinoids and all this other stuff. And when it comes to CBD, if it doesn't have those, then that means it doesn't have terpenes, it doesn't have flavonoids. So education is a major part of this whole thing.
I mean, that makes it kind of sad for the consumer out there because, they tried this stuff out. It wasn't made properly. It wasn't, like you said, the right dose or whatnot. And then they think it doesn't work like it should be working. I mean, with headquarters in Colorado, you cultivate your own hemp right there in Kansas. Are some of these organic farming techniques proprietary and unique to your farms? Can you kind of explain that?
Yeah, ours is we have an agronomist who's been a lifelong farmer, and to kind of give you a short background on it, when the marijuana industry came about, they didn't know how to grow it properly. That industry seems to be THC, THC, and THC, which is the stuff that gets you high. CBD does not get you high, which is a distinction to make. But in terms of growing it, they, in its infancy, had all these backwoods techniques where they thought you had to stress the plant, do all these other things to make it produce more THC and do all these things, which all turned out to be opposite. Feeding the plant the right nutrients is what makes it a healthy plant. One of the reasons we ended up with such a good product is because we used a technique, and I don't go into too much detail, but I doubt anybody's going to steal it. But we use sap testing where we would take the healthiest portion of the plant versus the unhealthiest portion, which you can see when you go and look at it. And we would send that off. There was only 2 labs in the country that could actually do the analysis because they were the only ones that had the machines. There may be more now, but we would see where the plant was deficient. And then we have natural solutions to feed them what they need: calcium, manganese, whatever it might be. So we would feed our plant what it needed, and we would figure that out from the healthiest part of the plant. So we would grow really healthy plants.
So I mean, some real deliberate, intentional things you're doing on your end to make sure you're talking about the top quality. I mean, from seed to bottle, you employ a slow CO2 extraction method to extract that CBD, like you said, from the hemp plant. Why is this method considered to be one of the safest and most effective, would you say?
Yeah, so you don't have to do as much. There's some ethanol extraction which works, and I've seen it do okay. But most of the companies, when I look at their certificate of analysis, when they do any form of alcohol/ethanol extraction techniques, they lose a lot of the terpenes and the minor cannabinoids in that process, and it's got to be cleaned to make sure there's no residual stuff left over. The CO2 is just very clean. The problem with CO2 is a lot of companies want to do as much as they can as fast as they can, and when you use too much pressure, too much heat, you start killing some of the minor stuff in the plant. So, just to give you an example of that is a lot of the minor, there's over 130 compounds, cannabinoids. It was 100, now they found 30 more. And they're not in abundance. So while you're extracting it, it's very easy to lose all of those, but they all have beneficial properties. And you'll see a lot of CB, C, CBN, CB, there's a CB new letter after it coming out, left and right. And this one's better for sleep. This one's better for, pain. This one's better for this. We're a full spectrum company, so we try to get all of those and as many as possible, but they're not abundant enough in the plant to where if you extract if you don't extract properly, you lose all of those. And you also lose terpenes, which are something that's in the plant that have many beneficial properties. Everybody's heard eat your fruits and vegetables. They're chock full of terpenes. CBD is chock full of terpenes, very good ones from, that do a whole slew of things, but you lose all of those. So when I look at a certificate of analysis, I can tell whether they either had a bad plant to begin with, or B, they just extracted improperly.
Full spectrum definitely matters, but like you say, you got to dig a little bit deeper because people are using a lot of those words out there very loosely, using them on their product and their marketing. Your farming really has the consumer, the end user in mind. Your products are free from harmful chemicals and pesticides. Why is a natural and pure experience important for you to provide?
Yeah, when you get into farming, you start to see a lot of things in the soil all the way through the whole process. It's very easily contaminated. Your farmland may be completely organic, but your neighbors may not be. So things that might be on theirs may have blown over onto your soil, and vice versa. So once you actually get into the farming process, you can see something like Roundup that's out there. So people who are doing non-organic farming techniques, this stuff gets everywhere. It does, if you're using it on your field, it can travel upwards of 60 miles to another field. So when we went through our 3-year process to become organic, we never used things such as Roundup and stuff like that because they have, it's full of stuff that's not good for you.
Wow, we're talking about a 3-year process. A 3-year process is pretty incredible to take that time to make sure you're fully organic. The foundation of what you believe is sustainable farming. How do techniques like crop rotation, cover cropping, and natural pest weed control ensure your sustainability?
Yeah, it just, it's all, I simplified too. It's all in an effort to keep the land healthy. The nutrients in the soil, you hear a lot of talk about how we've lost nutrients in the soil and all this other stuff. And I agree with that to some degree. But when you do it correctly and you rotate crops, you use different crops, you're able to maintain the ground and the soil and the nutrients in that soil.
A farm and the product that comes from it is only good as its soil. How does practicing regenerative farming kind of improve the health, not only of the soil, but we're talking about the entire ecosystem over much time, would you say?
Yeah, so it's interesting. What we found when we first started this is, I would love to go into more detail about the plant itself because it's one of the most unique plants that there is. Our agronomist has now fallen in love with it. He farmed everything, and now he is strictly just growing this plant because he is so enamored by how many different things you can do with it and how it grows and how different it is from any other crop he's ever grown or any other plant or anything he's ever grown. And essentially, when you grow hemp, it is amazing what it does for your soil. It literally soaks up so much bad that, like, our soil health improved after one crop of growing hemp. It was unbelievable. Our soil health changed dramatically to where, my farmers have thousands and thousands of other acres of farmland, and they almost wanted to plant hemp on their land just to increase their soil because the soil got so good after we grew this. It was astounding. So it was able to kind of suck up a lot of different things that were in the soil, and our soil health improved for our next crops. Like you wouldn't believe. And we do soil testing constantly to see what's in there, what it looks like. Our nutrients in our soil just shot through the roof after growing hemp.
Incredible seed, obviously. Not only good for people, but good for the farmland out there. Speaking of products, you offer a diverse range to cater to the consumer's specific needs. I mean, whether they're looking for a tincture or salves, I mean, you guys have it all, not only for consumers, but even for their pets. I mean, is that something that's becoming more and more popular, would you say?
Yeah, so two things on that. I guess I'll start with the pets. Pets, when we first started growing, I graduated with my undergrad from Colorado State University, and I went up there and I worked with their seed lab, and they have one of the best vet clinics in the country. And the woman who's actually was just in the Denver Post about 2 weeks ago, they did a big article on her. We had just met with her, and she was, we had met with her when we went up to CSU and we were first starting this whole project, and she was just starting a lot of her studies on pets, not just pets like dogs, but horses and a whole slew of other animals. And now we're, 3-4 years later, and she's got a lot of results and from what she was doing with pets. But the cool thing with pets is we've had this experience with my dog, my niece's dog, and then one of our neighbor's dogs. They were end of life and pretty much on the couch, not even going outside to go to the bathrooms, had stopped eating. It was that time. And nobody wants to put their pet down. And I did it with my own pet. I was like, let's just force some CBD in there and see if it helps at all. Within 2 days, we had a dog that would not get off the couch, was going up and down the stairs, was eating again, and then went on walks. Only lived about 2 more weeks, but dogs are great because when you do some type of study with humans, it's very difficult to do. It's like, what's your pain level between 1 and 10? 10 different people have 10 different pain levels. So it's kind of hard once you get into that. With a dog, if you give something to them, you can just see wasn't walking, wasn't going up and down the stairs, wasn't eating. Now it's eating. Now it's going up and down the stairs. Now it's not crying as much. So we really like the whole pet thing. And that was some of the most amazing stuff I had ever seen with the pets, because we had that happen with 3 dogs that were towards end of life. There's also some misconceptions out there, I think, about how it works with pets. People think, oh, I'm just going to give it to my pet and it's going to stop its anxiety. It actually works a lot better for their pain if they've got chronic pain problems and things like that. It really helps dogs. In terms of diverse products, I would actually say we keep our product line a little bit less diverse. We don't sell gummies for the reason of bioavailability to your body. If you go into a store and you see gummies and it says 20 milligrams or something like that per serving, you're not going to get that through the digestive process. You're just not going to get that. So we don't like that because it gives CBD a bad name. Because if you're buying that product, you're probably not going to get the results that you're supposed to get because you're not getting enough of it. It's not being introduced into your body. So we stick to full spectrum. We stick to tinctures because that's where we've seen all of the best evidence. And the tincture, when you just take a dropper and you hold it under your tongue for 60 seconds, a lot of it gets absorbed sublingually in the blood vessels in your mouth. And we find that that's the best way to make it more bioavailable to your body. And if you were to do the calculation, the stuff that I saw on the store, we would have to sell our product for $350 compared to theirs if you take into account the milligrams and the bioavailability. So once again, you got to be really careful what you buy and be educated on what you're taking and how much of that's getting into your system. Because for all of the REM sleep studies, between 100 and 300 milligrams of this stuff, it really helps you sleep. I mean, that's what I started using it for, which is another part of my story about how I got into this. I actually had a very stressful, I never practiced family law a whole lot, but I had a stressful case. A child died during the case. It was on the news here in Denver. Somebody had set up a GoFundMe page. I had some major anxiety going on. And the extractor said, hey, let me give you some of this CBD. And I had kind of started getting into it. And I said, this stuff's not going to work or whatever. And next thing I know, I'm sleeping all through the night. I mean, it's
Wow.
just, it was amazing. But that led to the next thing and the next thing. So it's like after I got a full night's worth of rest, I started playing basketball more because my knee hurt less and I had less pain. And, one thing leads to another with this stuff. But yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That is incredible. I mean, absolutely incredible. The core of your mission has always been transparency and quality. How does rigorous third-party testing provide peace of mind, not only for you, but for the end consumer as well?
Yeah, so the third-party testing is great. What's bad about it is people don't know how to read the certificates because they're a little complicated to read. I, in fact, had to go in and work with the people who did our testing. And I said, what does this mean? Because we sent ours in, and the lab here in Denver, which was one of the first labs that was ever doing it, and they did it internationally across the world and had all these certifications. They actually called me up personally and were like, what did you guys do? Because we don't see stuff come through with all of this. And I was like, I had no idea at the time. What? I said, I don't know what this is. And they said, we want to take you out to lunch. So we went out to lunch and I had to have them explain to me what the certificate was and what all the things meant. So after I got educated on what the whole certificate was and why it was so good, that's when I really started going out. And I've reviewed probably thousands of them now at this point in time because of all these companies that have popped up. And there's really, at this point, there's only two. There's another very popular podcaster who has millions of followers who invested in a CBD company. I got my hands on theirs and they claim to be the most potent, strongest, CBD. They wouldn't put their COA on their website. I had to call them up and email them to get their COA. And I kind of lost a little respect. I used to listen to this guy's podcast all the time. But then once I saw his COA, I said, you're claiming that it's this great CBD and it stinks. It flat out stinks. If somebody's trying to, help themselves for nausea, you have no CBDA in your product, which we have we have a ton in. So the third party testing is super important, not just for CBD, but for any product you go out there and buy. It's really important to know what you're getting because most of the stuff, it's a marketing industry. Most of the stuff on the shelves isn't what it says it is. And especially when it comes to CBD, you really need to buy a quality product. And I'm here in Colorado, and I have no problem mentioning a company like Charlotte's Web, which was one of the pioneers in getting the CBD industry going, and they have great CBD. Ours and theirs, after all the certificates I've looked at, they're the two best. I haven't found any that compare in terms of that. And like I said, 9 out of the 10 biggest CBD companies have a really bad CBD.
Wow. And for someone like yourself who takes a photo of the label, goes and checks it out, you probably do a lot of shaking your head many times when you find out what you do. I mean, so the concentration of CBD is analyzed to ensure we receive the highest quality CBD products. Where can your products be purchased? Is this online strictly, or where can they go?
Yeah, we just have an online store, so that's where we sell our products. And if you want the website, I don't know if you provide it, but it's just www.organileaffarms.com, and that's where we.
We'll definitely put it on the bottom of the screen there. Your shopping page makes it easy to shop for the perfect dose of relaxation and embrace the natural goodness of CBD. Is it rewarding for you and your team to provide this type of incredible benefits that CBD can provide?
Yeah, we've actually partnered with a couple of what we would call orphan neurodegenerative organizations. There's big ones like Alzheimer's, MS, Parkinson's. You have some of these big ones where there's been a lot of money that's been funded into them. People don't know there's probably another 50, 60, 100, I don't know how many exactly, but there's a lot of these other ones that affect smaller numbers of the population. And a lot of the people are in chronic pain, have issues sleeping. They have some real debilitating things going on. And we have partnered with them. And what's been great is most of them get prescribed some very heavy duty painkillers. And we have been working with them to see if we can't get them off of those and living because of painkillers when you're taking the oxy or some other opioids or something like that, they can become addictive and they're not good for your stomach, they're not good for your gut. They become the cause of and solution to all your problems, because the second they wear off, your body's now going to go into a more inflamed response and you're going to be withdrawing and you're going to have a whole lot of issues. So we've been able to get people completely off of their heavy duty painkillers. And we've gotten a lot of other people off of your Tylenol and the leaves as well. So we love it because it actually helps. There's not really, the thing I'll mention here is what we've found after getting into this more and more and more is if you go look at the supplement industry as a whole, there's commercials. You can go on TV right now. If you watch TV and you get commercials, if you have cable, you'll see like coffee with mushrooms in it. And you've got mushrooms that have just hit the market and they're making tons of money. In terms of efficacy, I've actually been around studies with this, turmeric, ginger, ashwagandha, you name it. I've actually been able to go and do compliance work for some of these companies that make some of the stuff when I was an attorney. And none of these can get you off an antidepressant. CBD has gotten people off antidepressants. It's gotten people off of Valium and Xanax. It's gotten people off of heavy duty. There's just not other supplements out there that perform at that level. So we've been kind of really into this whole education piece to say, hey, people, you need to become aware of this. And there's a reason that the government, Human and Healthcare Services, they took out a patent on CBD
Yep.
once they realized our bodies have an endocannabinoid system. So like my dad's an internal medicine doctor. They didn't teach him that when he was in medical school. They didn't even know we had an endocannabinoid system. And essentially, right after they found that out, they go out and get a patent on this. And if you look at the patent, it's very detailed in terms of they found out so much good stuff about this that it was like, we're patenting it,
Incredible.
right away. And so it holds a whole lot more promise now than a lot of this other supplement industry. And a lot of these other things are making more money and they make a lot of claims about what they can do. And when on a bar chart, efficacy wise, so far the CBD is like hitting levels that people can't explain, while the rest of the stuff kind of sits down here. I'm not against all that stuff. I actually use a lot of it, but it's overpriced. The markup is huge. And in terms of what it really actually provides you from a perspective, if you were to take 300 people and do a study on it, it's not that good. And I've seen the studies, I've watched them play out in terms of sleep, in terms of whatever, pain, inflammation, all this other stuff. They actually just don't do as much as they claim to.
Wow. I mean, definitely rewarding for you folks out there, your team, and obviously you've seen the personal results yourself. We do a lot of research before we look into a company, and I've literally only interviewed maybe 2 more over the past decade that basically are full spectrum and basically providing for people like you do. So I'm happy to educate our viewers out there on what you do today. Viewers, let's take a look at the bottom of the screen right there. What you're going to see is their website. On the website, see all the products on their shopping page right there. You can learn more how they strive to be one of the most trusted sources of CBD products. I mean, once again, that is Organileaf, a natural and reliable solution to support your wellness journey. This is Gary Atensa with CNTV, and if you don't know, now you know.